different things. That's really terrific, and I appreciate that. The more involvement, the better, and I really appreciate this, but we're making a big push to get this show on more places, more recognizable. This is a reboot of a very important show that was very important to a lot of people in this country in the 90s. And even in the 80s, people loved Chuck Harder, loved his opinions, loved his style. And Chuck is retired. And he basically said, Keith, take the show and do your best. I'll be listening. And listen, that's a big feat to fill. And we're definitely different. I'm not him. People look for him all the time, and they're like, gosh, Keith, nothing against you. We love you, but we miss Chuck. We all miss Chuck. Love the good old days. Love the Telford Hotel and the fountains. And being up north there, the air was cooler, a little bit less humid, further north than Tampa is where I actually do the broadcast from. But the broadcast, interesting enough, was launched from Tampa, Florida, from a garage. Chuck actually launched for the people at WFLA, but then on Sun Radio Network back in the day. Some of you might remember the Sun Network before People's Radio Network, but Chuck took his savings, his entire savings, and built an empire with newspaper and television and radio, and it was a multi-million-dollar company, nonprofit. And it was incredible just to see this guy work and what he did. But he was a pioneer, baby. Before hundreds of talk show hosts and columnists, now with alternatives, Chuck was one of very few alternatives that you could find. And he took a big hit from the Clintons from that. It was forced off the air with an 18-year audit. You can still read about it. If you're interested, you could type in Chuck Harder /IRS, or how about Chuck Harder /silenced? And you can read the article from WorldNet Daily. But, man, cutting-edge stuff. So this is a program that was a staple, and it's a reboot, and we've got some good press from a lot of the trade magazines, and we got a lot of ears listening in New York and a lot of different places saying they like what they hear so far, and we've been doing it for a little over 2 years now. And so if you're new to the show, we hope you'll definitely share the show if you'll do that, okay? Like the show, share the show. Doesn't that sound good? The commander of the U.S. Pacific Force said today that the ISIS-linked militants returning from the Middle East are intent on opening a new front in Asia. And this is according to the Wall Street Journal. They reported this. Admiral Harry Harris, he used the battle in the southern Philippines as a prime example, and he warned that the militants may be losing ground in Syria and Iraq, but their supporters are still willing to fight. Harari is a wake-up call for every nation. In the Asia-Pacific, he was telling the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, these terrorists are using combat tactics that we've seen in the Middle East to kill in the city of Marari, and the first time ISIS-inspired forces have banded together to fight in this kind of scale, and about 500 gunmen, including several foreign fighters, stormed the lakeside city of 200,000 people, occupied buildings, burned schools, and hoisted Islamic State group-style black flags on May 23rd. Faced by his worst critics, President Rodrigo Duterte, I guess is how you pronounce his last name, he responded by declaring martial law in the South and ordering a massive offensive. This fighting has forced more than 300,000 people to abandon their homes, Marari, and outlying homes, and just evacuating the centers, which rapidly became overcrowded. Harris said that the militants are attempting to indoctrinate people in the town. He called on Muslim leaders to attempt to confront the threat. We can counter violent extremist organizations like ISIS collaborating with regional allies and partners that may have elements in their countries sympathetic to ISIS's cause. Now, a very smart gentleman says that this is not the first time that America has been faced with these particular things. And, of course, you got to leave it to historians, those that study history. And I totally love history. This is Lieutenant Ralph Peters this morning on this very subject.
The United States has dealt with this before. After the Spanish-American War, when we took the Philippines from Spain, among the toughest individual enemies we've ever faced in the U.S. Army, U.S. military, apart from the Apaches, were the Moros, which Spanish word for Moors in the southern Philippines, the Muslims. In fact, they were so ferocious. They'd come into battle drugged up, attacking you. You couldn't knock them down. It's like trying to knock down a meth head. And we ultimately had to develop the famous 45 caliber Army pistol to have enough stopping power to shoot down a Moro attacking it. So we've been there.
And here we are. You know, history has a strange way of repeating itself. It does. These people, they're on a religious quest. I feel like at the point rather in the great scheme of things on the calendar, I just kind of see it as being a prophecy being fulfilled in front of our eyes. Just to see the state of America and where it's at and the flux around the world and just the destruction and the killing, the mass killings of Christians and Muslims alike all over the world, and just to see the hatred, the senseless hatred that's going on, and these people and what they believe is just unbelievable. That they're going to be able to get some kind of 77 virgin entrance into heaven from Allah after doing all these heinous acts. I think that a loving, kind, just God is going to be able to do this. It's so delusional. But there's those that do believe it, and they train these kids up, these little ISIS fighters that you see them, young children. It breaks their heart. Kids are not evil. You know, they're not born evil. They're taught this, and they don't know any better. They send them on their way to do this stuff. And, folks, to me, there has to be a concerted effort with a lot of our allies to be able to really kick some booty. And there's a lot of countries out there, folks. America's done a lot to bail people out through the years, as you know, World War II, etc., World War I. We were there. I've talked to some of the old-timers that fought these wars to bail others out. We need a concerted effort. We can't not be doing this alone. But I think it really comes down to leadership. We have the best trained military, and also with a great deal of heart, and we're really good at implementing things and getting things done, which is a beautiful thing. I have nothing but admiration for the military and for all the branches of service. God bless you for your service. If you've served in past or present, whatever capacity you've served your country, God bless you and appreciate you so much. A lot of times people don't hear it, maybe on certain occasions and certain holidays, but this American really appreciates your service and your dedication. And I realize it's not easy for so many that have come back from wars where loved ones or friends have not come back, or they came back in pieces, literally, or their minds are not the same. Try to volunteer, try to make a difference in a vet's life. I always encourage this wherever I go. Visit a VA hospital, spend some time, just listen. They got stories. They have a lot of stories, but that's basically what a lot of them, they want somebody that cares. Share a cup of coffee, buy a sandwich for them, learn about what they did. They love talking about what they did, what they were trained for. And what you will find more often than not is their love for country, why they got into the service in the first place and what they did. And they'll talk about their families and their friends and those, unfortunately, that did not make it out. And it always amazes me when you talk to a veteran that's lost perhaps a limb or two or three. they'll always talk about somebody that ended up far worse than them. And to me, that's to hear those stories, I always come back and I say to myself, what in the world do I have to complain about? I mean, it just gives you more of a, I like to say, an attitude of gratitude. It's just it's a beautiful thing. And I think more of us need to kind of take a pause for the cause, if you will, and do these particular things, acts of service, acts of kindness, wherever you might be. Go to a soup kitchen. I don't announce these things. I do these things. Nobody knows that I do, but I do it. I volunteer. I go out and I do these things because it touches me, if this makes any sense, then more than it touches them. And I know it does good. I know it helps them, but it always immeasurably comes back on you. It's a type of paying it forward. You know, as the Bible says, don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. You just do it. And especially when you bring a smile to an adult, person that's starving, literally starving and hungry. I've made so many trips over to the poorest bush country in Jamaica to see these poor people are so poor, but they're ashamed because they have so much pride. They won't even look you in the eye when you're serving them food. But I think about all these things, and, I like telling stories, relatable stories, true stories that connect so you can kind of hear, some of the humanity, because sometimes we lose this in translation. And with life and as busy as it becomes for all of us, just trying to pay the bills and get things done, trying to get through this thing we called life, we're here with you, navigating this journey together each and every day. And I'm just so proud that I'm able to share myself with you and my life and things that happen. And there's a little piece of it, a little glimpse into Keith Allen. The Trump administration plans a border wall. They've been talking about this big, beautiful wall. Donald Trump wants to build it. Well, the agency in charge of the U.S. border security plans to start building prototypes for President Trump's proposed wall with Mexico later this summer. Ronald Valeto, Customs and Border Protection Acting Deputy Commissioner, said yesterday that the 4 to 8 companies will get contracts to prototypes in San Diego that could be models in the roughly 2,000-mile border. Companies have 30 days to complete the models. Alito says that it's impractical to build a wall on about 130 miles of border where there already are natural barriers like lakes or canyons. So the big proposed budget for 2018 includes $1.6 billion, folks, for 74 miles of wall in Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and San Diego. There are currently 654 miles of fencing. Now, earlier this month, Trump mentioned building the wall with solar panels. Remember Donald Trump saying, think of it. Trump told a crowd at a rally at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, he says, the higher it goes, the more valuable it is. Pretty good imagination, right? Now, Trump's been criticized by some of his supporters for what they see as a lack of attention to one of his key campaign promises. Construction has not begun, and there has been resistance from Congress. But the White House insists that the plan is on track. Well, there you go. You've heard it here first. It's a good. We got to build a wall. There's no doubt about it. If you've spent any time out in Arizona or Texas, it's a mess. But the Border Patrol, they got their hands full. The border wall will help. And talking about inflaming, do you not think that CNN inflamed the Border Patrol thing when Trump said he was going to build the wall the first time? And enraged minorities around the country. That's why a lot of them are so PO'd. That's why they're mad. That's why they don't even want to give. Not all. A lot of minorities that I know, that I've come across, they know the story, and they say build the wall because they want to protect their friends, their family, their job, their security. Not everybody that comes across the border loves America. Not as a prize.